Hi, and welcome back. I am Cindy Dickman, your host for Rethinking Intelligence. And I am super excited to have another guest speaker with me today. And this is Kari Van Bebber. And Kari, welcome. I'm so glad you could be here.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be part of this.
Yes, and I guess a little bit about how we met. It was actually, I
Yeah.
think you were, correct me on your title, but you were head of school or head of school for a gifted school that we were checking out for our boys,
That's
and I met her there. We connected. We have our professional lives intersect.
yes, yes, definitely. And my son being in the class is the same as your son, so that was also the added connection there. Yes.
Absolutely. And um, so I'm just so glad you could come because you kind of have this broad spectrum of experience. I know that like when we talk about one-on-one, that so much of our personal lives intertwine now with our professional lives and what we do now. And so I'm just wondering if you could share a little bit about your story that led you doing what you're doing now with the gifted high intelligence population.
Sure, sure. Yes. Well, I started my career as a teacher and then quickly kind of went into the field of psychology and counseling and just have always been really into the social emotional needs of individuals. And
Mm.
so from teaching, I got my master's in marriage and family counseling and also school counseling and ended up as a school counselor for many years up in the Bay Area. And there I actually was on a gifted journey that I didn't even realize
Mm.
as I was helping the kids there and so young and just learning and finding some patterns and some, identifying
Mhm.
some difficulties some of the kids were having, but I didn't know why. And
Yes.
then suddenly, through lots of different situations,
Mm.
realized, oh my goodness, these kids are brilliant, and that's also what's making it challenging for them.
Yeah.
And, it was sort of the mindset of this is an affluent neighborhood and we're more on the, challenging the kids
Mm.
and everybody's fine. Nobody needs anything extra. And yet I
Mm.
kept finding that they absolutely did need something extra. Um, and then come to find out that it was the giftedness, the profile that was adding to, just kind of sensitivities and intensities
Mm.
and social pieces that weren't clicking. So that's where it started. And then we made the move to Santa Barbara. And right after having my son, I ended up working at this startup school for the gifted. And that's where I was deeply entrenched and really learning about the gifted population, what giftedness means, um, and working with just, purely a population that was just
Mm.
gifted kids all in one space. And I learned an incredible amount through that process, like no doubt, which has
Yeah.
helped me in my own parenting also, and my own personal identification of giftedness that I didn't have prior to that. And yeah, so then went into my private practice and have continued my work there. And because of my connections with the gifted community, I continue to get a lot of gifted individuals, adults, children, and
Mhm.
continuing to help them on this process, understanding their giftedness.
Mhm.
And yeah, of course, I could go on and on, but I'll let
Yeah.
you maybe
I know. I feel like
a
that's what
little
we do when we
bit.
get together. It's like we can just talk forever because there's just so much when we approach this population and the
Yeah.
complexities that they have. Yes, it's like a never-ending conversation. It's an exciting. Can you now, because you said the complexities within your own life, seeing this in yourself, can you just like point to just a couple things that you have noticed looking back, you really see that manifest in your life?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, it's been quite a journey of
Mm.
discovery with this because I did not identify as gifted when I was younger. I mean, I knew I was smart and did well in
Mm-hmm.
school and and my parents always treated me so, and so it wasn't a bad thing, or either way, just neutrally, not what was this idea of what giftedness is, quote unquote. And my older sister was much more book smart and, driven, if you will.
Hmm.
So where everything seemed to come easy, and that wasn't necessarily my path. I was more interested in people and how people
Mm,
felt and picking up on all the emotions in the room. And, later on in life, realizing like, oh, that is my giftedness. That is part of my giftedness, is that the attunement that I have to other people's emotions
mm,
and feelings, and being able to read a room socially, emotionally, intuition, these types of things. And then, of course, then becoming more comfortable in myself, realizing like, oh, there are so many characteristics of giftedness that, oh, I
yeah.
do that. I do that. That's,
Yeah.
and so for me, it's a bit of a kind of a heartfelt journey and passion in
Mm,
that, helping people understand now that giftedness is so much more about how you experience the world
yeah.
versus any sort of outcome or
Hmm.
success metric,
Yes.
right?
Absolutely.
Um, so that to me is kind of one of the biggest pieces of kind of
Mm,
my journey, and I want people to know it earlier on, right?
yes.
To like be able
Hmm.
to own that and understand that and break away from these myths and preconceptions that come with it. Like you said, highly intelligent, gifted, what do we call it? Because what is it, and how do you even frame it into one word?
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like here in our society, we're like really the only ones in the world who use the term gifted. And
Yeah.
there's just so much baggage with it. And
Hmm.
and so it's like, yeah, I do always couple it with high intelligence because that's what it is, but then we only attach it to intelligence. And so it's like, yeah, what is that? What is that word that we can get that will truly encompass all of this? And
Right.
hopefully
Hmm.
we'll land on it one of these days, Carrie.
Yes, yes, or and also the essence of it is that it isn't one word, right? Like it's
Oh, absolutely.
it's
Yes.
so all-encompassing and individualized for each
Hmm.
person. And so yes, we need that word that includes those definitions, right? That really, excuse me, captures that idea of how it's not in a box definition, because people experience the world in all different ways, and gifted individuals experience it with higher, sensitivities and intensities, which create just a different experience.
Yeah.
And that's science backed, of course. And so,
That's it's like the
yeah.
never ending. Yeah, because I think for you and I, we're in the world, so it we see all these different pieces of it. Actually, I wanted to bring in because when I was asking you a little bit about your story, I was speaking to a group of women last evening, and um, I made this comment because I feel like so many in um, want to know like how can I know if I'm gifted or how can I know if my child is gifted, right? And it's interesting because I kind of made a kind of a flippant remark of, well, those of us who work with this population, we just kind of have the meter and we know almost instantly if they have this brain type or not.
Hmm.
And then they were like, well, how do you know? What is like what is your secret? And so like, I was talking about that and trying to boil it down. But the thing that it hit me as I was talking to them was it's almost easier in men.
Mm.
And it never really hit me as I was full in this room full of women who I think the majority of them absolutely did have this brain type. But I realized whenever I look back, it is typically the woman that I have to like think a little bit
Okay.
more on,
Oh, okay.
marinate
Yeah.
on. And then it hit me, and I just wonder if like this is part of your experience. I know research says this, but I didn't know if this is part of your experience that women we just learn to compensate
Mhm.
earlier,
Yeah.
compensate for the discomfort. We may have a little bit more of that social intelligence, the emotional intelligence that comes naturally to us.
Hmm.
And so we are able to kind of like meld in and shape shift a little bit more than the male population. I just wanted to bring that up to get your
Yeah.
thoughts and your experience with that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I see it too. And like you said, that there's research that shows that, gifted girls tend to not get identified, right? Even within the same family, if the
Yes.
family has a boy and a girl, they'll test the boy and be like, think they don't need to test the girl,
Yeah.
when it's actually hereditary, and it's very likely if
Yes.
one sibling is gifted than the other, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think even, when you think about, myself personally, or, it's like it, girls tend to be more pleasers, right? And of course, these are
Hmm.
stereotypes and generalizations, and it's not true for everybody. And generationally, it's changing. So these are,
Hmm.
positive moves, but we're kind of taught to blend in, and we're taught to
Hmm.
please and do what we're supposed to, and be a good girl,
Hmm.
and
And for
but
the
that,
most part, we are a little bit more compliant in
yeah,
that regard,
yeah,
as opposed to the male type who is just
right,
like,
right,
forget you, I'm going to do my own thing, you know?
yeah. I mean, there is a more of a tendency
Yeah.
to make others feel good, right, in the
Good.
process.
Absolutely.
And
Hmm.
so that kind of goes through to everybody, everything, right? It filters out too,
Hmm.
because if you're with a group of friends and you're really wanting to talk about astronomy at a deep level, but your friends are talking about something just a little more, a little more on the surface of just maybe, you know, fashion, or, again, not to knock that. It's just, different depths of, intellect being
Absolutely.
used. Um, and so we start talking about fashion because that's what everybody else is doing, and we don't want to hurt anyone's feelings,
Yeah.
and that's a thing.
Or actually, if I could just interject, like with fashion, I see like someone who would be incredibly artistic and creative, like a girl who wants to talk about fashion, or a boy, it doesn't matter. If they talked about a fashion, it would be at this level of the textures, the
Yeah.
colors blending
Yeah.
together. How does it make you feel when you wear this, as opposed to just like what makes me look good, you know? So even
Yeah.
if you are talking about a similar topic, it's probably just not at the depth
Right.
at at which
Yeah.
the person is experiencing it.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, obviously there's a lot of complexity to fashion and design, and there's so much to that that brings a lot of
Mm.
intellect too. Um, but you're just thinking as kids at that level where they're just sort of
In
like,
the
oh,
depth.
what are we
Yeah.
wearing? What are we wearing today is really what I mean, right? By
Yeah.
that for word, and versus what are we going to learn today? Um,
Yes.
and so, you just kind of blend in, and there's a little bit of sometimes hiding your intellect too, right? As a
Hmm.
woman, you're not quite sure if that's accepted or encouraged or okay, and it depends on the people you're with, right? And that's why environments are really important, and for all of us
Hmm.
adults that are working with kids to understand, how to recognize it and how to see it in different individuals in different ways, and why there are so many different ways that you can see it, right? And there isn't
Mm.
just one thing that defines it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And as you said that, I was thinking, and I've heard it over and over again. I'm not the one that felt like I hid my intellect. It was just because it was never, I was always like you, got good grades, things came to me. It wasn't a big deal. But the intellect piece is more of the depth at which I experienced and the way I thought about things. And so I think I always questioned myself. I'm having this incredibly deep thought about this topic. If I share it, it's not that I wasn't aware that I was having an incredibly deep, profound thought. It was just I'm not sure it will be received, and that signals to me that it's incorrect and kind of dumb.
Yeah. I mean, there's
So,
a vulnerability in
mhm,
sharing, right? And so we have to be emotionally safe too in these places to share like what all of those thoughts that our brains are capable of. And so yeah,
mhm,
and if other people aren't sharing those types of thoughts, then we're not sure if we should be sharing those types of thoughts.
yeah,
Um and yeah, you're not quite sure if that's what's I mean, when you're growing up, it's so much too about your peer
mhm,
reactions to you, right? Are you going to get laughed at, or,
yeah,
are you going to get, just is it cool? Is it not cool? I mean, again, depending on what type of
mhm,
environment you're in, but this is why your upbringing and your childhood experiences can really make a difference on how you experience your own giftedness and your depth of understanding for it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking about because you and I, we kind of, even though it's the same population we work with, our concentration is kind of different age groups, even though you do work across the board, and I kind of technically do too. But your focus that we talk about are more the kids,
Hmm.
and I work with parents in 18 up.
Right.
And I would love for you to share what you see, kind of like trends, um, challenges that you see very commonly in the age groups that you work with.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of times, like the beginning journey, you do have, and you mentioned a little bit earlier about how, we're almost intimidated about finding out whether it's true or not, right? So who's going to evaluate and who's going to make that judgment? And then what am I supposed to do with that? And,
Or we're scared. What if it's wrong?
yes. And
And we
so,
think we are, and then we really
yes.
aren't.
And then people feel silly, right? And so I
Yes.
do, that is a very common thing, I feel like, as far as like
Ah,
a beginning journey for parents, to come in and you can sense this like, or even if I see it in a family, they're coming in for something totally different, and then I
mm,
see it, and I have to be really mindful and intentional about when and how I bring it up, um,
mm.
because you can see people like,
They
wait,
bristle, right?
wait. Like
Yeah.
I know I'm not looking, and to me it's not a bad thing, right? And it's not an elitist thing. It's nothing. It just is. It's like it's right here in
It
front of
just
me. I
is.
can see it, and if you know it and understand yourself,
Absolutely.
you will help yourself. But I
Mm,
understand this where all of these pieces come from. So
mm,
that's definitely something that just that I see over and over again with the parents' process of understanding,
mm,
being open to it and understanding what it means. Um, and then, a lot of the kids will come in, I would say your big buckets are emotional regulation
mhm.
and attention and social.
Yeah.
So, right. So,
Mm,
and sometimes, of course, you'll get a child that it's coming mostly like from behavior. So, like behaviorally, things aren't going well at school.
yes.
But if you
Yep.
go a little deeper, right, that's why I said these, but it's because of attention and maybe the sensory piece or
Mhm.
social. So that's how it kind of comes up. Um, and so yeah, the emotional regulation, the social and behaviorally things aren't, this isn't working out, kind of school's
Mhm.
not working out. And so what do I do? And so parents are trying to decipher between is it a behavioral issue or is it, and then we're identifying, right? Well, there's actually, there's a high intellect here and
Mhm.
motivation and stimulation and, challenge and these types of things. So I know I'm jumping over around a little bit because it's always so
There's so
intertwined.
many pieces. Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that's kind of where we usually start. And then, like you said, once you've worked with this population and I've studied a lot, about giftedness and, different types of things that pop up. And then we can kind of go a little deeper into like, well,
Mm,
why does it look like attention? Why does it look like social? Why does it look like
mm.
behavioral? And then we're looking
Yes.
at lots of different processing pieces too, right? Whether it's
Absolutely.
auditory, sensory, visual, these types of things. So, um,
I love it. Oh,
yeah.
there was something as you were talking, it was reminding me, excuse me, of the last time that we were just together talking. And and it just kind of hit me that in order to work with this population, and um, we kind of, because we understand the minds, because we have this mind, that we have to kind of create or invent our own tools for
Mhm.
working with them. There
Yes.
is no book, there's no DSM, there's no manual for this is how you coach or counsel this brain type. because it's still very much considered a very neurotypical brain type and to use these methods. And as you and I know that those methods don't necessarily work
Right.
for this population. So when we work with someone, we have to kind of develop, sometimes it's individually for
Hmm.
each person.
Yep,
We
yep.
we have to totally rework the wheel sometimes
Yes.
and use different analogies, different actual tools, different to meet the needs and the understanding of that one person. So I'm wondering if you could just share an example, a real life example of what you have done of creating something to specifically speak to and reach one of these children that you work with.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, what comes to mind as you're talking to it, particularly with this population of kiddos, is complexity, the need for complexity, how the brain really, will lock into something that's complex,
Yeah.
and then also novelty. So, a lot of research will show how, just for kids in general, that structure, predictability, routines are really good for kids, which of course I completely agree with. And if I try to do like the same sort of like container and routine with my gifted, highly intellectual clients for every session, nope.
Yes, I'm very
And like I can't, do like, oh, every time you come in, we're gonna do this type of emotional check-in, right? Which a lot of kids would just love and they would look
the
forward to it and
predictability of it.
fall
Yeah.
into it, and that would be the best practice for creating common language and
Yeah.
habits, right? But no, I mean, I have to really think for these kids and I have to come
Mhm.
up with something different, because if I've already done it, I'm not going to get the type of engagement, right? So that's what we're talking about. Novelty is really important. And
And
then
so
the,
for you, can I just, so
yeah,
for you, what I have in my head, like if I were working with a kid like that, you would potentially still do the emotional check-in, but it's going to be with a completely different activity and it will be a side conversation that you're doing
yeah.
while you're doing something they've never seen before.
Yes, exactly, exactly. So we could be playing, I could put out a challenging game. Like I have the little Rubik's Cube type, the Rubik's
Hmm.
Puzzle, where they, manually, it's a flat one, but you move all the
Oh,
cubes
yeah.
to get it in a certain pattern. Um, and there's two, so it's technically a competition, but I don't do a lot of competition in sessions. But so we were like, we're both going to work on this, and we're doing that while we're talking about
Hmm.
something that's, the check-in. So the
Hmm.
emotional vocabulary, building their emotional vocabulary, building their emotional awareness, building their confidence and comfort with talking about their emotions is still just as important. The key components are there, but they can't do it the same with somebody
Hmm.
else, right? So,
Yes.
or for example, like yesterday, with a child, we created our own language. So with
Mm,
blending different emotional words, right? And this
mm,
is a young child, we're talking, 6 years old.
mm.
And again, with another child, we just want to take it one at a time, talk about what this emotion means, maybe
Yeah.
look at an emotional card, do a little game. But these kiddos don't want, that's just not an, it's like, why are we doing this? There's no context to it, there's no meaning, we're not. But we can fully role play situations while stacking colored cubes of that are representative of emotions and applying that to the role playing, and so it needs to be novel and complex, right? And then what we did with that, so all at the same time, right, with the role playing with the figures and then the stacking of the cubes to represent feelings and different feelings and representing mixed feelings, and then creating our own language of, well, what is the word for mad and sad? What is the
Mm,
word for
yeah.
frustrated and disappointed? And then them having so much fun making these silly words that like they created, and they're, so
And it
that's
means something to them.
yeah, and now because now they had the autonomy in it, they had
Hmm.
some like meaning because it was playing situations that meant something to them, and
Mm,
they're really excited to go use this language and tell mom. Well, I'm actually feeling very sired right now, which is like sad and
And
tired,
tired, yeah, yeah.
right? Yeah. So that would be a pretty fun example of that pretty represents all those pieces that you need to bring together to really help engage
Yeah.
and making it as meaningful as these kids need.
Mm. You are so top notch every time I talk with you about what you
Oh,
create for these kids. It really is fantastic. Um,
thank you.
and
Thank you.
as you were talking, it was reminding me of and I would like to get your take on this because since I do work almost primarily with 18 plus, it's interesting because even though their brains need novel and that stimulation from a multiple areas, because they have never tended to actually understanding what their brain needs and how it works, they just gave it everything,
Mhm.
that as they get older, they kind of just actually it shuts down. And if you start introducing too many novel things, they actually just
Yes,
it's
right.
done. And
Mhm.
so I notice I kind of have to do something very differently. I
Mhm.
so what I do instead of introducing like um just a concept like something that I'm excited about, like, well, this could help you, how you frame your life and how you go through your day, this could totally help.
Yeah.
It's more or less it's finding an analogy that they currently have in their life that's very similar
Mhm.
that I wouldn't use for anyone else except for this person.
Right.
And I build an analogy of their life around something that's comfortable and stable, and I interject it into that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just very interesting as you
Yeah.
were talking about the novel aspect. I
Mhm.
think it's because their nervous systems and everything just get so inundated and just I just need what I know as
Right.
they get older and they get tapped
Yeah.
out.
Right. No, I mean, I think that makes sense. And yeah, I've never really thought of it that way. Or I mean, so it's really interesting to hear you say that and kind of start to think about all the different reasons why that could be.
Mhm.
But yes, I mean, I do the gifted adults that I work with, the overwhelm of their thoughts and their
Yes.
emotions and their sensitivities is a definite pattern, right?
Mhm.
Very, very, I mean, of course, that's probably why they're coming to us, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And
And
that,
oh,
go ahead.
and if I could just say, and it's almost like it's because my brain is firing now because I
Yeah.
hadn't thought about it this way. So now it's like, oh. But when I think about the novel things that I can talk about with them that completely spark them, you see them light up, it's within their structure.
Mm-hmm.
It's not
Mm-hmm.
an outside thing. Like with a child, you can bring an outside thing in. Ooh, tell me more about that. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
There it's just like you find the things that's in their little sphere, their box, their structure, so to speak, that then it lights them up. Oh, someone is in my sphere. They understand it. Let's talk
Mhm.
about it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And actually, what I would add to that is that
Mhm.
with the kids, the there is a definite portion of the population that that coming at things in a very indirect way is really important.
Mm.
So of course you have the kids that are just like, I want to know everything and I
Yeah.
want to hear you and oh, we're gonna do something, let's do it. Oh, you're gonna teach me something, I'm gonna learn it. But those also aren't often the kids that are coming in, right? And so
Mhm.
it connects to what you're saying because I see it very clearly in that when a child is having a hard time with me being more like a leader or in control or directing something, oftentimes is coming from an inner overwhelm. And then
Yeah.
that's when I'm looking at, right, like sensory processing or
Mm.
auditory processing, because these systems are part of what's like why the information
Yeah.
coming in isn't syncing up so well that they feel like more like, okay, well, I need to be in control, right? Or
Mhm.
that feeling of perfectionism because, if it looks too hard right away, well, then I'm overwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed emotionally, sensorily,
Mhm.
maybe, and I say no. And so then I try to take back control. And I think adults, so luckily those kids coming to me are getting this at
Mhm.
5, 6, 7, 8 years old.
Yes.
But the adults coming to you maybe didn't get that. And so, of course, then they're going to be more in their box and
Yeah.
rigid because they've learned
In order
coping
to keep
mechanisms.
control over it, right?
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly. So I do kind of think it all comes from a similar place, right?
Absolutely.
Um,
It's something
yeah.
that was not tended to, right?
Right. Right. Exactly. Exactly. Right.
Can you speak to actually, because you brought in the sensory piece again, and I know that is a huge not just the sensory, but the processing piece is a really large piece of what you do and evaluate.
Yeah.
Can you speak a little bit to how you see the processing come into play? I know we've talked a lot about this. I see this a ton. I
Hmm.
know you see it a ton,
Yeah.
but I would love to have your thoughts on it.
Sure. Yes, I mean, I think, again, it's it's something that a lot of people don't necessarily catch, or this is where people will get misdiagnosed, right?
Yes.
So, um, like you might get a diagnosis for inattention, some sort of attention deficit, when
Mm-hmm.
really there's an auditory processing difficulty.
Mm-hmm.
Inattention, the criteria for inattention and the criteria for auditory processing are actually pretty identical. Of course, in every individual will show up possibly a little bit different, but the auditory processing piece can be missed because you're not thinking about it like that. You're just seeing it as, oh, they're not tending to things, they're not paying attention, they're having a hard time focusing.
Yeah.
But again, I work from a very like root cause type of holistic, but why are they having trouble not listening? Why are they not hearing what's going on around them? Or you hear a lot like, well, gifted kids, or if it's smart kids, whatever, intellectually, like they're really into what they're doing.
Oh,
And so
yeah.
they're hyper focused and they are just, it's because they're so into it. They're so into it. It's, that's what it is. It's not an attention thing. But actually, hyper focus can be a sign of some auditory processing pieces that it's harder for these kiddos to process sound. So sound can be overwhelming, and
Mm-hmm.
also you have a hard time discerning which sound to listen to, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
if it's really easy and you're really interested into it, you just throw your all into it, and then you forget about all, you're not tuning into any other sounds so much that you don't pay attention to those sounds.
Yes.
Um, and then, or if it's not interesting, or it's too easy, or it's too hard, then I can't focus on it because I'm all the sound, I'm hearing the gardener outside and the TV in the background, or the adult conversation in the other room.
And
So,
you can't get your brain to stop. It
right.
just is like going in a whirl, and you're like, please
Yeah.
stop.
And so that could be how the sound processes in your brain, right?
Mhm.
And then, of course, sensory. I mean, gifted individuals, the intellectual brain has higher sensitivities,
Mhm.
experiences things at a deeper, intense
Mhm.
level. Well, that means all your senses too, right?
Yeah,
So you're hearing
absolutely.
sounds louder, you're hearing, something way in the other room, your lights are brighter, the
Mm.
taste on your tongue is, like my son the other day was, well, I like these new snacks, Mom. But I like them when I eat them kind of like quickly, but if I leave it in my mouth too long, then I can taste the cauliflower base. And I don't love that. What? And I'm like, wow, that is, yes, yes, that's right, And so
Yeah.
this is how we're experiencing the world when our brain has this capacity to be, that scent that you smell, or,
Mm.
I was in, a session this morning and and out of my office doing something else, and there was a dog, and I love pets and that's all great, but the dog food was just put out and I was
Mhm.
having a hard time really falling into what I needed to do because I could smell the really strong smell of the dog food, right? And so the little ones, the younger ones, have a harder time managing all this. I mean, if they don't like the smell, they're going to go, ew, what is that smell, right? And then
Mhm.
that's like where then it affects you socially. Or if
Yes.
the tag in your clothes is itchy, you can't focus. Or if
Mhm.
if it's hot in there, then they don't perform, or can't calm down. And so, so like I said, those buckets of attention and
Yeah.
regulation and behavior, and it's all, well, we have to look further to know, is it
Mm.
coming maybe from a sound? that's not syncing up? Is it coming from your body not being able to take in all of the senses or too intensely, and so you need support to do that?
Hmm.
And I know you've talked about visual processing before on here too, and so that too, how we're taking in visual information, all of these things can really be affecting our
Hmm.
experience. Yeah.
And I think, um, and I assume your experience would be the same, but most people, if you say, "Oh, do you have a sensory like processing issue?" No, 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 I don't.
Yeah.
Um, because it's so a part of them, it's so a part of their life, but I have yet to meet one person with this brain type that doesn't have at least one.
Sure.
Usually it's multiple,
I agree.
right?
100%. And yeah, absolutely.
And so
And
you can see, like, as we were talking about earlier, of like keeping it within the box and the control of the box.
right.
But this is just one aspect, right? All
Mhm.
of these senses coming together, not to mention the overexcitability is thrown in there as well, the
Right.
balance, and it's all jumbled up that it's if it's never recognized, if it's never understood, the amount of stress
Mhm.
that the internal stress that just keeps building in this population is huge, right?
Yeah, it is. And that feeling of, I mean, there's a human need, right, for belonging.
Hmm.
And so we want that. And then when we haven't, we don't understand where it's coming from, we feel different.
Hmm.
I think too, a lot of people might end up feeling like they're too much. Other people that
Oh,
haven't
absolutely.
understood them, right, have labeled them as feeling like they're too much, too sensitive to this, to that. And that, of course, is not great for your mental health and confidence and embracing and accepting who you are. And so, yes, I mean, it is all of these things come together. That's why it's amazing for us to be able to help, and support bringing that awareness out to anybody that comes to us, right? To help people see, no, it's actually, I'm working, I have like a college age, client now who is yeah, there's so many conversations we end up having about, well, that actually comes with the brain that you have. That's
Yeah.
actually really common for the brain that you have. And it's like,
Yeah,
oh, and then you can see it in clients, right? I'm sure you do too, where they
absolutely.
just sort of like, oh, like it's this answer of something that makes
Yeah.
sense. We all want to make sense of things.
Yeah, and it's almost like yes, I resonate with that. It's like the first time they feel like they are actually being understood
Hmm.
for who
Yeah,
they are. And
yeah,
I
and
think
really
that's big for this
being.
population is that not feeling ever understood.
Yeah,
But it's like, and also someone else is getting them, not just themselves. They aren't just understanding
yeah,
themselves, but someone externally from them
mhm.
is getting them. And it's like such a powerful moment.
Right. Yeah. I mean, to feel that you're not the only one, and aren't we
Mhm.
all looking for that when we reach out and we talk about
Absolutely.
when we hear like, okay, okay, that thought in my head is not only my thought. I'm great. So, okay, I got
Yes.
it. You know. Yeah.
Yes.
But that's how we're built, right?
Mhm.
To connect in that way.
Yeah, and I think it's so, I feel like it's so important, honestly, for this population is just feeling like they have at least one person around them that gets
Absolutely.
them.
Yeah.
And because I don't know about you, but like I've had so many people come and it's like I was just talking to a woman the other day that she's like, I've never in my entire life ever have had anyone to understand me.
No. Yeah.
And I know you hear that
For sure.
too. And it's
Absolutely.
like, but we do. Like
Hmm.
we get you, you're understood. And
Right.
if there's one of us, there's more of us that
Yes.
that are like you. Um,
Yes.
I would like to kind of close, not close out, but kind of eh, present this last little piece because I feel like these topics can get a little heavy sometimes, right? The truth of them is they aren't just all fun giggles, bunnies, and bubbles, right?
Right.
There,
Right.
there, there are, and for those of us who work with this population, it can be a really, really heavy population to work with because we see the same stories, the same familial struggles, the same honestly wrecked lives, and right?
Yeah,
as they
yeah.
get older. And
Mhm.
it's a heavy population. But I think also we see the other side of it,
Hmm.
how much it adds to our life,
Right.
the richness it adds. I often like to think that I'm very visually, like I just take in and appreciate so much visually.
Huh.
So I was out for a hike this morning and the green grass,
Hmm.
after all the rain, the grass is turning green. It like just lit me up.
Mhm.
And you know what I mean? Like it
Yeah,
lit
yeah.
my entire body up. The sun filtering through the trees and hitting the
Mhm.
grass in the most
Yeah,
perfect,
the beauty. Yeah.
picturesque way. And I like to think that it is an absolute privilege that I have this brain that I can experience those moments at such a heightened and deep level.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I think that's really important, right? I mean, I
Mm,
think that that's the beauty of getting to know yourself, right?
mm,
And understanding yourself. And so doing the work to build your self-awareness, which then, leads to self-understanding. And then this is going to make me feel good. This is going to give me and fill me with energy. This is going to take my energy. And how do
mm.
I balance those things? And so if I know that the beauty after the rain, like I personally love the smell of rain.
Oh, that too. Yeah.
And so, like, if I can have that in my life, then I'm going to go seek that if I understand what that does for me, right?
Yeah.
And back to what you were saying is that making friends with it, I mean, yes, there are these pieces out there that we're
Yes.
like, especially if we've struggled in any ways with these processing pieces, or like you said, social struggles, family, not knowing it till later, and the struggles that maybe have caused. But when we know it and then understand it and we go, oh, like I am grateful. Like you thank it. You can thank your body and you can thank your brain for being able to have the capacity to do these things. I mean,
Mm,
you know, talk about perfectionism in this population. I mean, that comes from the fact that our brains, our abstract reasoning can go so far that you can see, right, this amazing thing.
yeah.
And so that can bring us to excellence, and that can also be very crippling because it can
Mm,
be overwhelming.
hmm.
But if we make friends with it and we have gratitude for it and we see like this is a gift, right? So again, if we go back to that whole idea of where this word
Absolutely.
came from, if we can come break through all the pieces out there that have been loaded onto this word and
Hmm.
come back to this idea that these are actually gifts that have been given to us, that we can experience the
Hmm.
world and do and visualize and see and have the capacity to
Hmm.
think at this depth and complexity, then we give ourselves that space to do that
Hmm.
and allow it and experience the beauty and have the deep conversation, and
Hmm.
then also know that we don't have to live in that space. We don't, our body doesn't require us to live in that space 100% of the time. So there are times we don't need to be doing our best and,
Yeah.
accomplishing anything.
Hmm.
We could be sitting in nature and just
Hmm.
experiencing it for all the depth and beauty that we can, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
But it's like to your point, it's really hard to do that if you don't know yourself, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And that's
yeah,
why
for
it's so
sure.
important. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is. And that's why, yeah, it's important for people to be open and for these conversations to happen, to see,
Mm,
maybe like see it differently, think about it, intellect as different than maybe different than you've ever thought of it before. I mean, that's
mhm.
how it was for me, like I said. Um, and yeah, kind of be, like I said, be friends with it, see it in
Yeah.
a different way that serves you and it's
Mm.
going to be with you for your whole life. So, uh, how do you link
It's
our
not something you can just like drop or that, like people say like, well, your IQ, or you can test into it or you can drop it. And it's like, no, it's your brain structures with you.
right, 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 exactly, exactly. Yeah.
Well, I just remembered, I know that I almost want to end on that note because it's so beautiful, the positive aspects
Yeah.
of really this brain type and how we're able to live with it and maximize that. But there's actually something that I really want to bring in since you are on the call with me today
Sure.
is there are so many parents who are really, really struggling through the elementary years
Mm.
in school, educational wise. I know we did. Um, I know you did. It is
Yeah.
just a common theme for parents of these kids. And I know for ourselves, we tried charter schools, we tried public, we tried private, we tried homeschool. I mean, we literally did it all.
Yeah.
And I do have personal thoughts on all of them because it's like such a give and take. But before I offer anything from myself, I would love to hear yours because you just have a lot of knowledge in this area as well.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think like anything, you definitely need to start with the individual in front of you, right? So
Mhm.
there's not I think many of us have to move from this idea of I know my child's going to be, if you're a public school person or you're a private school person, doesn't matter. You kind of have we come into this with an image of what we think is going to be for our kids.
Yeah.
Um, and typically it's either what we did or it's the opposite if we didn't have a good experience,
Yeah.
right? Like you're like, I'm not doing that, or this is just what it is.
Yeah.
Um, and so you think like say you're public school, you went to public school, you had a great experience, you moved forward through it, and so your kid's just gonna do that. And then you have a kid that isn't gonna just do that. And you're like, wait, what to do? Um,
Yeah.
and so that's the first piece is like
Yeah.
really recognizing as a parent for you, like what can you open your eyes to different paths
Mm.
and what path do you want for your child and what does that mean to you and the child that's in front of you is not the child that you were when you were back then and the world isn't the same as it was back
Mm.
then, right? And so we can be creative in today's world, and that's another thing is we don't have to follow one path. And I think it's intimidating for parents to feel I think we're sort of ingrained to think like too much change for children is bad. And
Mhm.
so we get scared of like, well, I don't want to change them again. I don't want to change them again. And there is obviously something to that. But we also need to be open to the fact that your child might need change and they might need to do something different. So there's
Mm.
those pieces. And then there's the fact that there isn't one perfect place.
Mm.
And not only is that because there just isn't, there couldn't possibly be because we're working with individuals who all
Mm.
need these different things in their lives, but also because they're changing and you're changing. And so it's this evolving process that one year they might be really focused.
Mm.
Like I had my child at a certain spot one year because I needed the social emotional piece to be
Yes,
steady because of our
absolutely.
life circumstances, right?
Mhm.
And it didn't matter academically or whatever.
Mhm.
I just needed, him to feel safe at school
Yep.
with a safe person and have joy in his life.
Mhm.
And then though the following year I'm like, okay, but I'm ready for a little more intellect, right? Like now
Yeah.
we're ready for this. And so it's being in tune to your child, it's being willing
Mhm.
to carve your own path, and it's being willing to shift and turn like as whatever the opportunities are in front of you, plus your child's needs. So we
Mhm.
can't really say, we can't really say so much that public is right or private is right or all
Mhm.
gifted is right, because that also is very dependent on the teacher, the program,
Yeah.
the quality of what's happening, and again, your
Yeah.
own child's needs. So
Mhm.
I know it's like we want a little more specific answer maybe, but
No. I actually, as you were talking, I was thinking that's kind of exactly like where we landed. I
Mhm,
was thinking specifically of our youngest when you were talking about your son.
mhm,
Um, it may have been the same year that they were in the class
mhm,
together. At that point, our youngest, we could not get him
right,
into any type of school setting.
mhm,
It was, it was just impossible. But
right,
where we landed for that year got him into some type of setting.
right,
And so we look back at, that year and it was like that was the stepping stone that allowed him to, like with your son, to go on
mhm,
to perhaps something different
right,
that fulfilled his needs then. And then next year we're switching somewhere else to
right,
fulfill his needs there.
right,
And I think that's a beautiful way to think about it. It's just like always staying in touch with
mhm,
what they need at any given time. And there's a place. and a method
Right.
to fulfill that at some
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, yeah. And I do think it's also remembering that, and again, I'm going to say this, and of course I can just imagine like sometimes when what people will say, but um it's always a balance, but there is learning and growth when things aren't perfect, right?
Absolutely.
And so of course we
Hmm.
want the perfect scenario for our
Hmm.
children. But life isn't perfect and it's never
Yep.
going to be. And so, of course, we follow our gut. When we know it's not right for our kids, don't stay. Don't, when you know, right? Like we've both done this too. When we
Hmm.
know that it is not okay for our child,
We're out of there.
we follow that. Okay.
Yes.
So 100%. Don't just stay in something because of grit and all this.
Hmm.
The kids don't need to be developing the grit of an adult when they're 5, 6, 7 years old. They've got plenty of time to
Yeah.
move through that, right? But
Hmm.
so like the being in tune and what can they handle right now and
Hmm.
where are we growing and where are we thriving? That balance is we want them to have both because they are going to run into being bored, a teacher that maybe doesn't talk to them in the tone that they really want them to talk to them
Absolutely.
and
I've never ever heard that. And then it totally ruins their whole day, the
yeah,
insensitivity of an
yeah.
adult. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
yeah,
Or some
absolutely.
injustice, right?
Hmm.
Or the meaninglessness of some class, or, right? Like, I mean, my child is constantly analyzing the program into what really is meaningful and what isn't. And you know what? Like, that's amazing.
Yes.
But I don't need to jump to also reorganize it for him every
Hmm.
second, right? Because
Yes.
there is a learning in that. And there, we know, like, when we go to college, if we go to college or a trade school or
Yes.
whatever first company you
Hmm.
work for, or the company that you make, I mean, it doesn't matter really the path, but you're still going to have to do things that you didn't want to do. You're
Hmm.
going to have to work through and have tolerance for discomfort. You're going to have to work with people that aren't your favorite. And so remembering the soft skills that are really
Hmm.
important to develop too, while also understanding that gifted kids, if we're like kind of, wrapping it up too in the sense of what these broad like needs is intellectual needs for intellectually minded individuals are actually an emotional need.
Hmm. Yes.
And so you need those together, right? It needs to
Hmm.
be emotionally okay, intellectually okay, and those things won't happen separately for
Hmm.
these kiddos.
Yeah. And I'm really glad you said that because I think this might be a good place to end it, but it's I think for those of us who are parents of these children, we we really have to work on ourselves,
Hmm.
right? We have
Yeah.
to work on ourselves because these children do require more from us.
Yes, they
They
really
just do, and I think that's a
do.
hard fact that it's we don't really want to admit, but they do require more, and for us to be able to give that, we have to work on some of these skills ourselves.
Right?
So,
Absolutely. I 100% agree. And yeah,
yeah.
and just, I mean, I know that all of my work through this, my career and being
Mm,
in this field of this population has 100% made me a better parent.
yes.
I can never imagine, if I hadn't have the knowledge and
Yeah.
experiences. I mean, I'm so, so incredibly grateful for that. And why I think partially why we are passionate
Mhm.
to give that to others because we know how valuable it can be. And not everybody, it's you're not
Mhm.
expected to know these things. It's not out
Yeah.
there. It's okay if you don't know them, right? It's okay. It just we can only do the best we can.
Yes.
But yeah, I think that's really important. I agree.
Mm. Well, Carrie, thank you so much. Do you have any last things that you want to impart to us, to give to us?
I mean, I guess just on that note is like being patient with yourself,
Yes.
right? And
Mhm.
just knowing you're doing the best you can and knowing that it is hard and that if regular, normal, typical, the well-known parenting strategies aren't working
Yes.
as much as you want them to, know that that fits. That's another
And
indicator
it's
that
no fault of
maybe
you. It's like it's no reflection on you as a
Yeah,
parent that's not
you're
working.
not failing, and
Yeah.
but connecting with your kids and being there and listening, I mean, that's going to be the number one thing. They're going to remember how
Mm.
they felt, right, with you
Yes.
on a regular basis. Um, and you just take it one step at a time and all these little bits of information,
Mm.
integrate it as you can. But yeah, I think just know that it's okay to feel overwhelmed at times and like maybe the
Absolutely.
path hasn't been
Mm.
paid for you and be maybe even frustrated that it wasn't paid for you and why can't you have the one that's paved for you, um, and then slowly build towards that like gratitude and thankful, just
Mm.
just being grateful that you actually get to go on this journey either for
Yes.
yourself or for you and your
Mm.
family, and finding that the making friends with it.
Yeah. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Carrie.
Thank you for
It
having
is
me. This was so, I always love talking to you, Cindy.
absolutely.
Yeah, it's always a wonderful, meaningful experience.
Mm. Well, and I'm glad for whoever listens to it that they got to sit in on one of our conversations. And
Yes.
so in the future, hopefully we can have another one because there's so many different facets that I would love to discuss with you and talk about.
Yeah.
And I am going to list wherever this is posted. Probably I can't on Spotify, but on I am going to list your information
Okay.
for your website. I know you have resources on there. I have resources for parents on my website.
Great.
So please check them out.
Perfect.
And thank you again, Carrie.
Awesome. Thank you, Cindy, so much. All right. Bye.